Everyone. I've ran into a few cool jump starts lately. I've talked about the Han cluster, and today I want to talk about another one that's also science fiction, kind of pulpy, space opera, and this one's called Saints and Sinners. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support, likes, subscribes, all that good stuff. And you can also check out our new podcast. Well, it's getting into its third season now, called Mastering the RPG. And so hopefully you like that. That's more general topics and not just Savage Worlds. But still a good podcast nonetheless, at least I think so. So what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about a new jumpstart, a new setting for Savage Worlds called Saint and Sinners. And that's Saints and Synners, Saints and Sinners. And I'll tell you why Sinners comes from in just a second. So this is a sci-fi setting. In the book, they talk about it being sort of a sandbox, space opera feel. It's got that feeling of, outlaw. You kind of think Star Wars a little bit. At least that's what I got from looking at the Jumpstart. So let's read a little bit about what they say. So from the book, it says, in the distant future, the Star Systems Alliance sphere of power is greatly diminished following the destructive Armageddon War against the invading Nagatha. Allies such as this Kalem, Zek, Volkalovsky lent their technology and manpower to stop the onslaught. Psionic advancements, nano and cyber techs, and raw number soldiers were shared to save the galaxy from absolute destruction. It was not enough. Civilization was left in tatters. The SSA is but a shell of its influence and resources it once controlled. After the devastating collapse, the SSA and other galactic governments retreated into their home systems, guarding only most important systems and strategic worlds. So this is where our crime syndicate kind of picking up the slack, kind of getting into the cracks that are left over by this great alliance falling apart. So to combat that, sort of this new group of, criminal, underground, what have you, they created Saints, which is Special Agent Intergalactic Task Force. And that's to go against the syndicate members, which call themselves Sinners. The syndicate, they call themselves Sinners. So like I said, the setting is planned to be kind of an open sandbox, space opera type game. So that's pretty exciting. Another Savage Worlds sci-fi setting, always welcomed, because we're still waiting, as the time of this video, we're still waiting for that sci-fi companion. So more settings for science fiction, the better, I think. So in the setting, each character has a profession that kind of defines their starting bonuses, edges, gear. The Jumpstart uses one example, the smuggler. Oh, smuggler. So as this example, they start out with the freighter, the gear necessarily for that. They begin with persuasion and piloting of D6 and D8. So they have kind of a initial sort of put together for each of these professions. And I think it's pretty cool that it looks like they're not going to make you earn things that you should just have. So the smuggler already has a freighter. So that's pretty cool as far as the setting just kind of defining the base there. And that's only one of the Jumpstart only has one of these examples in it. So the book also lays out a few new hindrances and a few new edges. I think there's 8 of them. Two new arcane backgrounds. One is cybernetics and one is hypertech. Cybernetics has a relatively small power set, it looks like, but it represents kind of those benefits of self-augmentation, things like boost lower traits, that kind of thing. Hypertech only affects the digital world. It doesn't give a list of powers in the book, but it does give an example of where these things really only affect the electronic world. So, for example, they gave disguise. And disguise would work for guards looking at a monitor. They would not notice you because you've disguised yourself. But if they saw you face to face, it wouldn't work. They would recognize you immediately. So that's an interesting arcane background. Feels like it's got a little downside to it. So hopefully there's some upside beyond just that it's in the machine kind of power. So I mentioned they included 8 edges for a taste. One example is a combat edge, which allows characters to ignore the map, the multi-action penalty, when doing a maneuver and shooting a weapon. And so this one's all about driving a spaceship in a way that lets you do both maneuvering and shooting at the same time without the multi-action penalty. So that really helps with the flavor of the game, and there's a few more of those. They added they show in the Jumpstart a couple of powers they added for, I think, the Hypertech arcane background. It seems very geared towards that. So looks like the overall setting will have some additional powers just for their different arcane backgrounds. And then finally, as all good Jumpstarts do, it ends with a game or an adventure called Mission Alpha. It is 6 pages of the book, so there's some meat there. The adventure concept is described at the start, so this I'm not giving anything away. And basic premise is the players are searching for a kidnapped Union VP, where the syndicate, the Synners, are planning on auctioning their knowledge off to the highest bidder. And that is where the adventure starts from. There's obviously pre-gens for the adventure that the players can then play to go and see if they, over this 6-page adventure, can save the kidnapped Union VP. There's some secrets in there. There's some twists, but I won't get into them. As any good adventure has some twists in it. So that's Saints and Sinners, a new Jumpstart setting for Savage Worlds. It's by Star Anvil Studios, and they have it on Drive-Thru RPG to PDF for name your own price, I believe, $5 suggested. It's worth $5 to get kind of that taste and get a science fiction adventure that you can use, even if the Jumpstart, the world and the setting doesn't excite you as much, but at least you get an adventure, so that's pretty cool. So again, Saints and Sinners, $5 Jumpstart, Drive-Thru RPG from Star Anvil Studios. I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We would really, really appreciate your support. And just likes and subscribes are my favorite. So the more subscriptions, the better. I don't care what the algorithm says. I just like them. So anyway, once again, Carl, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye now.